parent supporting a teenager like that, because when they want to be recognized, they're not going to be able to get it then and there. So the suicide risk could go up. What could they do? Because many people in history have not been able to get treatment when they wanted it, but
Mm.
they managed to survive. So what could we say to parents, to teenagers?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very important point that actually in history there have always been people that have been gender non-conforming, felt they had a I mean, the language of gender identity is modern, but there have always been gender non-conforming people, always been people that have expressed themselves in different ways and within the stereotypes of the world have crossed gender. Whether they understood it in the language that we now use, I think you can't really do that. That would be called transing the dead and saying that person was trans. We don't know, but that person was gender non-conforming, whether that was Joan of Arc or Chevalier d'Eon or various other people in the past. But I think it's a very important point you raise. We actually have the privilege of medical transition now, and the demand for it has risen so fast that the supply of it doesn't match the demand. Um, we are an on-demand world, and again goes back to this instantaneous thing. I want it now. And of course you want it now, and in hindsight, you want it yesterday. I mean, I transitioned late in life, came out at 39, um, took hormones at 42 and had surgery at 49. But if you ask me, how would I have lived my life differently? I'd have done it 30 years ago. But equally, if I was a teenager, I would not give me the power to do that instantly because there are sad but true benefits to taking your time, working out who you are. There's a catch 22 as well around the fact that I said we're driven by our emotions, and we're these human creatures that have a survival instinct. That's how we've evolved. And actually, part of our brains still think we're cave people. Um, degendering cavemen briefly there, because no one ever says cave women, but part of us is still cave people. We're still thinking that we're under threat from the neighbor cave person down the road who might want to attack or steal from us or whatever else. We haven't yet built our communities, and even when we build a community, the definition of community is the exclusion of people who aren't in your community. So we build warring tribes, and we're still on this war footing. And the other bit of us that's kind of got this, I don't know, ancient emotionality, fear and flight and attack thing going on is the fact that our amygdala, is driving us. And yet a part of our brain, which is a part of who we are, doesn't really develop until our mid-20s. And that's the prefrontal cortex, which is the ability to try and regulate some of the amygdala. Um, I'm not sure I've even found that bit yet, but but the point is, I've read enough, lived enough, old enough now to recognize that my emotions aren't always true, or shouldn't necessarily be the thing that I live my life by. Because my emotions say, buy this, buy that, sleep with that, do that, kiss 14 people, whatever. I shouldn't do what my emotions say all the time. My emotions can drive me to suicidal tendencies as well, and I have a history there. Um, so sometimes we have to find a way to step back and be patient and take the longer view. And I understand that there are dilemmas around that because young people now have the option of puberty blockers, which didn't exist when I was first coming out. It's again a modern benefit, but also a modern curse because now everybody wants them instantly, so that you can delay the gender growth that you don't want. But there are pros and cons to that too. If you do take puberty blockers, you don't develop two other things, which actually might help your transition. If you take puberty blockers, you may not develop enough actual development of your birth sex that can then be used to create your gender body. So it makes actually surgery harder if you don't develop some of those aspects. Equally, it might mean that you never actually develop the ability to have sexual pleasure because you don't actually go through your birth puberty. So we don't know the full impacts of those things. So we've got this new possibility, and to automatically say, yeah, here's a new set of Smarties, and it's everything you want, and you can have it now. Well, it's a new privilege, and it's also a new risk. Um, so I think, yeah, in the past, people lived these pressured lives, and now we've got new choices. We've created new pressures. Um, And yes, I think, within the states, there are people who are literally leaving their state and changing to live in other states. There are people publishing lists of trans-friendly states or trans health accessible states. But, let's accept that this is not only about trans. In America, for example, you'd have to do the same thing for an abortion. So this is it's not just about trans people, it's about a rollback of certain rights to all. And the right to an abortion and the right to transition, to me, both fall under a human right of a right to bodily autonomy and a right to do what you want with your body. But obviously that comes with a certain kind of age and maturity, what we call kind of a Gillick competence, which actually tends to be in your early teens. But then with this caveat that I'm saying that actually your rational brain isn't going to catch up with your emotional brain, until what you regard as, if you're 15, you regard 25 as ancient. I did once encounter a 17-year-old gay person at a talk I was doing, and I invited him to say something, and he said, "Yeah," he said, "I met this gay person the other day who'd waited all their life to come out. I couldn't believe it." He said, "Why wouldn't they come out when they were young?" And I said, "How old was this person?" He said, 28. And I said, all their life, So as when you're 15, you don't have this perspective of a 25-year-old, let alone anyone even older. So you've got these youth pressures, and everything does feel imminent. And trying to persuade anyone young of any reason, hey, why can't I have a car? Why can't I have sex? Why can't I have a gun? Whatever it is. And I'm not thinking of Europe, but in America, you can have these things at different ages, and everybody wants it now. There's a
Mm.
reason why you don't get a credit card until you're at least 18, you know, because you would be irresponsible if you were given it. Some of us never catch up with the responsibility aspect. But so I think putting everything on the table and having all these options, trying to get people to take their time is incredibly difficult, and is going to create that. And any kind of denial of, no, you can't have that now,
Mm.
it's going to create an emotional tantrum in your head, etc.